homeopathic resources because these are so important for your journey and especially as you're looking through information. The first piece that I want to recommend is that you create your own resource. So I started out with a really thin notebook and then got larger and larger until I'm to this size. So you can design your own based on your own needs. I recommend putting tabs in, and if you have family members that are going to be using this, just making it really easy for them. So for me, I put in like a homeopathic cheat sheet at the beginning. I label things like we have a wonderful headache remedy sheet, which we're going to have a whole module on headaches. I put in right at the beginning like COVID-19 stuff just so that they knew different remedies and indications, and I kind of tab everything so that we can find it easily. And this is one that if I'm going to travel or go anywhere, a lot of times I'll take this and some of the other books I show you. And I also have a spreadsheet that I print, and I've got several pages of spreadsheets with all of my remedies on there. But if I don't have access, like we're camping or boating or whatever, if I don't have access, I've got this to use. And this is also something my family can use. So I highly recommend that you start your own. Anytime you see any information or you make notes for your family, then I would go ahead and put it in there. For example, as you're making notes on could be every single family member and your pets, I would do a running list. You can keep it on a document and then print it as needed, and you can go through. I mean, I even have my dogs listed. So you could do, daughter number 1, daughter number 2, dog, and, chickens or whatever. And that way you have a running list of what you've used in the past and what has worked, because you'll be surprised when something comes again and a year later you're like, oh, what was that remedy that I used? What potency did I use? What frequency did I use it? So keep really good notes. And like I said, if you've got it in the notebook, even your kids can go back and find it. Okay, I'm going to tell you about some of the resources that I really love. So the first one is going to be this Banerji Protocol book. This would be one of my number one recommendations for you to get, besides getting a materia medica. And we'll talk about a materia medica in a little bit. But this one is from the Banerji Research Center in India, and these were medical doctors that were also homeopaths, and they came up with years of seeing many patients. They see around 100 patients a day, because in India it's such an impoverished country and they have people with so many needs. People line up to see them because these doctors have done so much good. So just to show you, they do have a whole section. The first section is on cancer and what they've done with cancer. They've had great success with various types, especially brain cancer. And then in their second chapter, they go into protocols for basic issues. So it could be anything from acne to acid reflux, basically. Almost anything you can think of. Here's one for alopecia. So what they've done is they've actually inputted all of this information into computers, and they've determined what has worked best for their clients. And so they usually come up with a first line remedies, second line remedies, and third line remedies. So the first line remedies, you're going to want to make sure you read the whole section. So that's a pretty long column. It looks like it's short, but it's 2 pages. And you're going to want to try to follow this as closely as possible. So this is for atopic dermatitis or eczema. So it talks about using Hebar Sulf 200, 1 dose every alternate day. They're very specific. That's what I love about these. They tell you how frequent to take it and what dosage to take, and they'll even tell you if you should order it in liquid. So if it doesn't say liquid, then you go ahead and just do it in pellets if you have pellets, unless you want to order the liquids. So anyway, so this, you would follow it as closely as possible. If there's, for example, it says if they have issues at itching at night and they can't sleep at night, then use add-in coffea cruda. If they're not having itching at night, then don't worry about that. You can just skip that one. So I just love this resource. And I will put a link to all of these. I'm going to show you a lot of resources. I don't want you to get overwhelmed, but I want you to know what's out there. This is another one that's an additional Banerji Protocols from the clinic. And this one can only be ordered, I think, from this lady who actually worked under the Banerjis. And so she also sends out updates about every 6 months about what they're finding. Like if they are tweaking these all the time, and if they're finding something that works a little bit better, she'll send out an email with the updated list. But you don't want to order this book unless you have this book, because if there is no change to it, they're just going to say refer to this page. For example, gout. They haven't found an updated one for gout, so they just say refer to page 82. So if you don't have this book, you're not going to be able to refer to page 82. I love this one in particular for the area that it discusses allergies. It's just a little bit easier to resource. Like this one, it goes through if you have dairy allergies, what to take, food allergies, junk food, mold, all those different issues. So anyway, I just like that one quite a bit. The next thing is I would recommend getting a materia medica. And a materia medica is basically list the remedies, usually in alphabetical order, and it explains what their source material is from and what it helps. There's this one right here. There's lots of different materia medicas. You could probably go to your local used bookstore or ARC or wherever you shop at, and they probably have something on homeopathy. Just make sure it's homeopathy and not something else, because there are materia medicas which are great for herbal, and it's good to have ones on herbal as well. I have those as well for great resources, but just make sure it is on homeopathy. This one is remedies of the Banerji Protocols. So she actually goes through, the same lady that wrote this book. She goes through and she has these listed and how they use them in the Banerji Protocol. She has some good pictures in here, and it's pretty easy to read, which is nice. My other favorite one to start with, I call this a beginning materia medica, is Joette Calabrese materia medica. I've used it for years, as you can see on my notes, and that's why I love to write in here and underline and put if there's certain protocols. She has some great videos on a lot of these. She was actually going through these alphabetically for a couple years. So I try to put, if there was a video, what the date was, what they talked about, and I add any other notes on this. And what I love to do, because I love to help educate people as they're picking out their own homeopathy, so I try to let them see, okay, if we're looking at, let's give an example, something for allergies. I may have them read 2 or 3 different remedies and see which one matches closely, because that way they have a buy-in to what they're looking at taking, and they understand. Even if they're younger, you can read it to them and just simplify it and say, well, this one should help with spasmodic sneezing. Are you feeling a lot of sneezing? This one helps a little bit more with itchy throat. And just read to them, a few sentences, and then they can say, oh wow, I think I'll try this one, and then let them try 3 or 4 doses and see if it helps. If it doesn't help, move on to a different remedy. But I love this one for that purpose. Another one I love to working with kids, but also adults, is this one, because I'm very visual, and this one goes through different remedies, and it has pictures on them. So here is belladonna, which is a deadly nightshade, but it's a wonderful remedy for fevers, for high fevers with pupils and staring eyes, it says right there. And this one, when I teach kids, I love for them to see the visual, what the plant is, how they used it. They discuss it historically, as well as what they use for it in the homeopathic remedy. So they talk about, like, if they use belladonna for something in the gross form, how they used to use it. Which is really fascinating. So I took time and read this whole book, just about, I cut out certain pieces, but to my kids last year at lunch as one of our books as we were reading, just so they could get this information and I could learn it too. I will say this one does go a little bit more into the constitutional remedies, which I don't focus on as much, but some people do like looking at the constitutional remedies, and that's basically looking at what kind of personality that person has, and if there is a remedy to help with their issues. So they actually show pictures of what they might look like, what issues they might have, like thinning eyebrows, or they tend to be hot all the time, they tend to get angry, or they tend to be lazy, whatever it might be. So some homeopaths do treat based on the constitutional. You can do that, and that's your choice, and that's why you get to educate yourself. But here is a resource that can help with both of those. They also go into in the symptoms in the back, like conjunctivitis, pink eye, and they give you different options for that, styes, or whatever it might be. Another set of books that I enjoy for kids is this Teach Me Health and Homeopathy. And this one's by Paula Brown, who is not a homeopath either, but she is really big on education, and she has a group that really is trying to work with Congress and educating them about our laws about homeopathy. So this one is great. It's actually a Charlotte Mason type of book where it's a whole story, and it talks about, it's beautifully done. It's got water pictures in here, or water paintings in here, and it goes through basically terrain theory, how we want to keep our bodies healthy, how we want to treat ourselves well, and then it goes into stories of different remedies, to include what Dr. Hahnemann did. They even go into germ theory versus terrain theory, and then there's stories that talk about some of the remedies. And she also has this on a CD set, which we bought, and we were able to listen to this with my mother-in-law on a trip to Atlanta. And I'll tell you, she still remembers some of them. Like one of them is Ruth's Talks it's called the Rusty Gate Remedy, is what they call it in here. And it, when you have that rusty gate that's squeaking open and squeaking closed, that can be helpful for arthritis, for feeling in the bones. And so she would say, okay, I need that rusty gate remedy. So I love this because everybody in the family can be learning together. So this book and the CDs are great. She also has a workbook based on different ages. This one's for 4th through 8th grade, since that's what I primarily teach. That has all different activities, so they can learn remedies, they can learn how to look for side effects from pharmaceuticals and compare them versus what side effects homeopathy has, which is very little, right? It talks to them about how to advocate for themselves when they're at the doctors, and as well as it goes into, I think, a little over 20 different remedies. She does have where they can create their own materia medica and songs that go with these, which is a lot of fun. On iTunes, you can download and just pay for the songs on their own, and those have actually helped us in the past. And then she has different games that you can buy and download as well. So I also wanted to go into, if you have animals, I highly recommend, where did it go? Getting some information on whatever animal you have and how to treat them homeopathically. Normally it is very easy if there's something going on, like if they overate or they ate something that was poisonous, you could use arsenicum. So if it's something you could use for a human, you can use that for a pet as well, or for an animal. But there are certain diseases that are more specific, and it's just helpful to have some resources. So this is one that I have on chickens. So it's just homeopathy for chickens. It's just a single-sided sheet that is laminated, and I just purchased this as is. I can't remember, it was probably like $15 or something. But this goes into issues that you may not always, like bumblefoot. I don't know what that would equate to in in human terms, and so they give you different options, homeopathic options for that, which is really helpful in my mind. There was one on here that I've used, if I can find it. Oh, they even go into infections, upper and lower respiratory infections, reproductive disorders. So this is just a great resource, and I think they have these for other animals as well. So for example, if you had a horse, I would recommend buying a book on treating horses with homeopathy. This is another one, Dr. Pitcairn, who is a vet. He has a good resource. He does talk about, I will say just a caveat, he does talk about homemade dog food recipes. I will say I don't love his homemade dog food recipes because they haven't been tested and they're not necessarily meeting the nutritional needs of the animals. For that, I prefer Dr. Karen Becker. She has some books and some resources where she has thoroughly um, studied what cats and dogs need nutritionally, and she has recipes that are exactly down to the gram and ounces, which is a lot more specific. But what I do like about this book is the back part of it. He has options that include homeopathic as well as other natural options for all different issues for dogs. And he also goes into um, for example, like distemper. I'm not sure how to treat distemper just on my own, so I'd have to look it up. This is going to be more classically done, so these are mostly done where they are either alphabetical or what he feels is most important. For example, there is a distemper in a 30C that you can get if you are concerned about your dog getting distemper. And then he gives other options if they do get it. So I do like this resource for that reason. And there's also this gardening resource. This one is by Dr. Kaviraj. He was actually Dutch, I believe. He has passed away. This one goes into even diseases that plants can get, how you can treat it with homeopathy. There's another book that I haven't gotten yet, but there's these a mother and daughter in Germany that do a lot with homeopathy, and they do have an English book, and they do have some English training. As well as in German as well. And they are wonderful with plants. I have some of their free resources, and I do use that I've downloaded. So I was going to show you, I do highly recommend that you do get a good materia medica. This is one that I have, but I saved up for, and I got it used. It's huge. It's larger than a large Bible, or most Bibles, right? But this one is by Robin Murphy. But you can, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link for a free materia medica, which you can get online. I will say it was written quite a while ago, so the language is going to be a little harder to read, but you can use that one to start with until you save up and you're able to get some of these. Like I said, I got a lot of these used. But what this is going to be is this is an alphabetical listing of every remedy. So for example, let's see, Cooper Medicalium. We talked about that one for my son's restless leg syndrome. This one is actually from copper, so it will tell you that. It will talk about how they make it. This is made with trituration, which means that they had to take the dry material and actually put it through a mortar and pestle, usually by hand, until they got it to usually up to 3 hours, where they would just grind it and then get to the point where they could add a little bit of water to make it into a tincture. And then they would, from that point, they would turn it into a homeopathic remedy. So this one will talk about certain coughs, cramps, epilepsy, spasms, even worms. So before I recommend using one of these, like let's say you have a small materia medica and you look one up and you're like, okay, I'm going to try this one. If it's for something not acute, so more of a chronic issue, I'd highly recommend reading up on it so that you know what to expect, what it's been used for, and don't expect, it's not that you're going to expect to have all these things to happen, right? But you want to look for what we call a three-legged stool. So you want to find about 3 different areas that this remedy can help with or that it impacts. And I want to be really looking for this one because you want to make sure that new issues don't crop up, and you should start to see a decrease in the symptoms that are happening. So for this one, it says spasmodic effects, convulsions, cramps of violent form. So that was what my son was dealing with, cramps of violent form, because we'd wake up in the middle of the night screaming and crying. It even says jerking during sleep, and that was him, like all night long. If we were in the hotel room with him, he's just jerking and moving and all night. And I didn't know what that was, and the doctors did not even figure out what was happening. And then, like I marked here, cramps in calves, That's where he was having it, twitching muscles, weariness of limbs. And it was just, oh, Mom, it hurts. I'm so tired. I'm not sleeping. So I started looking at all of this, and I was able to read up on this before I gave it to him, and make sure that it was the right remedy for him, if that makes sense. In the back of this book, we have what's called a repertory. So this is going to be a medical repertory, and so it's going to be an alphabetical listing of the issue. So for example, let me see if I can find a good one. Like dermatitis right here. So in dermatitis, I don't know if you can see, if you can get a close up of that. Is that, nope, okay. So with dermatitis, what it does is it lists several different remedies. Most of them are in lowercase, but there are a few that are in uppercase and are bold. So I'm going to read the ones that are in uppercase and bold. There's chamomilla, and it does shorten them. There's hepar sulf, there's pulsatilla, and rhus tox. So those would be the three main ones that if I'm dealing with dermatitis and I don't have a protocol in my Banerji book and I can't find one, this would be a great one to look up. So what I would do is I look up all three or all five of these and determine which one will be closest to the person that we're treating and their issue. So if I'm reading up on chamomilla, is that something that their dermatitis and their personality is going to fit? So you're going to take what we call a rubric, and you are going to, let me see if I've got that book. You're going to be able to start writing down. They actually have some in here, I believe. I can find one easily. Okay, so you're going to be able to look up, and you're going to be able to use you can usually check it off and see what issues that they're having and which one matches closest to it. I'm sorry, I can't find it right now. So like I said, you're going to look at these 5 different remedies, and then you're going to look at them in your materia medica and read up on them and see if any of those fit the issue. Sometimes the Banerji protocols or a protocol that you find online isn't going to work. So you're going to need to go back and repertize. I'll come back to that in just a little bit because I'm going to have that as part of our activity. A couple more. I want to go through some more resources really quickly for you. This one is learning to see. It doesn't have a lot of homeopathy in it. It has a little bit, but what I love about this one is this one actually helps you move from not needing as strong a prescription on your glasses, and how to do that through natural light, exercises, eye exercises, nutrition, and a little bit of homeopathy in here. This one, the foundation of chronic miasms, this goes deeper into miasms, which is basically more inherited issues. For example, if there's a lot of cancer in your family, looking at that kind of issue. For example, in my family, it's likely that we have more of a tuberculosis type of family. My grandmother had severe asthma and allergies and actually passed away from asthma, and she, based on her genetics, probably was exposed to tuberculosis when she, either through her genetic line or I don't know if she was exposed to it directly, but she's got a lot of signs of it and how to treat it. So this is a book for that. This is a great one that I like, a quick and easy guide to common disorders and their homeopathic treatments. I like this one. It's called Homeopathic Remedies because it has a lot of pictures. So for example, it'll go through the nervous system, and it shows you, if you're having a headache, what the issue is, insomnia, memory loss, mental fatigue, and it gives you a whole bunch of different options, and then you can read up on all of these. It has a circulatory system. So I like these because, like I said, I like diagrams and visuals, and then you can go in and kind of do a little deeper dive in that one. We're going to do a whole module on cell salts, and this is a good book, Anti-Aging Tissue Salts, and she has, I believe this lady, she's in South Africa if I remember correctly, and she has a lot of great ways to use cell salts to help your skin, your sleep, swelling, whatever it might be. This one is a good one. It's called God is a Homeopath, and this is for particularly for Christians who are looking for the roots of homeopathy, that have questions about any of that. And this gives a great, this person was from Australia, and he did a lot of good research into the background and history of homeopathy. And let me see. This one is an interesting one. It's called Healing Complex Children with Homeopathy. This lady, Angelica, she has treated a lot of kids that are on the autism spectrum, and how she does that, including clearing certain medication that they may have had, or treatments that they may have had, or exposures, and how she treats that. So she's had a lot of success. And I've got so many more. I'm probably not going to have time to show you them all. I have other materia medicas. So what I want you to do for your homework is, in the last module, I had you write down some issues that were in your family. So what I would like you to do is to use either a repertory in the back of your materia medica, or I'll tell you about a good one that's easy to use online. It's called Dr. Homeo, and it's just Dr. Dr. and then I don't think there's a period, Homeo, and you can put in there what your symptom is. So for example, I had someone just contact me the other day about a sinus infection. So we did a search for sinus infection because we were in a hurry, and we looked up all these different options for sinus infection. So what I want you to do is pick out one of the issues that someone in your family deals with on a regular basis. They don't have to have it right now, or something that they do have. Do a search for it, and I want you to see the different options, and I want you to write down the top 3 that you think would relate to this issue or to this case, and then I want you to look up either in a free materia medica or one that you have, and I'll give you one to look up online, and look up and read on those 3 different ones, and kind of see if you can see one that would work best for that situation. Thank you.